Well, the ANC is again trying to do damage control over corruption within its ranks. The National Executive Committee met at the weekend. The party says it's embarrassed by allegations that some of its leaders and members are involved in COVID-19 relief corruption. Let's get more from ANC spokesperson Pule Mabe. He joins us live via Skype. So, Pule, the ANC is outraged and embarrassed about this corruption. We've heard it before. What's different?
Thanks, Shahan, and afternoon to your viewers. The National Executive Committee met virtually over this past weekend, expressed deep concern about growing incidences of corruption, as well as having those within its ranks implicated even on spending on COVID-19 PPEs. It said that urgent action ought to be taken. In this regard, it empowered the national officials to immediately begin work to audit all of the cases of those that could have been accused, either they are charged in courts of law and all of that, and then begin to understand the sort of action that needs to be taken, whether such individuals need to step aside and all of that, but also said the national officials must come back with a report of such cases to the meeting of the next National Working Committee. It went further to say that there must be the strengthening of the work of the National Disciplinary Committee as well as the Integrity Commission, working together with the national officials to make sure that all of these cases, even including those that have come up with members implicated around COVID-19, such cases are acted upon. We ought to be showing the people of this country that we are serious about dealing with the scourge of corruption, and this must be seen and through the kind of actions that we take. We even went further to say that there must be strengthening of our own code of ethics in Parliament, governing the work and conduct of public representatives, as well as the ethics that govern what officials in government are expected to be doing, so that they are removed from instances of conflict, especially as it relates to government procurement. We have also said that our regional structures and provincial structures must also follow suit, do the same work of auditing all of the cases that have got to do with the COVID-19 pandemic. Our people ought to understand that when we took a decision, when our government took a decision to take the country on a lockdown over a few months, the intentions were noble, and they were about saving lives, not about facilitating a grand corruption scheme.
So, Pule, you talk about strengthening bodies within the organization like the Integrity Committee, yet that committee makes recommendations just previously regarding the Deputy Finance Minister, and what do? You sit on it. So why would we take you seriously now when you say the same thing?
Well, you'd also expect that the National Executive Committee, empowered by Rule 12.1 of the Constitution, is the highest decision-making body in between conferences. It has said something unprecedented, which we have said, which must be welcomed, is that we have now said that the Integrity Commission, in its strengthening, had to be seen working together with the national officials, together with our National Disciplinary Committee, so that issues are properly processed in the organization.
You say you're dipping your heads in shame, drawing the line, so to speak. That's shambolic, because you're seeking sympathy for something you've promised to deal with for years as the ANC.
Well, but what we are now saying, Shahan, you'll realize if you follow through the statement that we are even attaching timelines to the sort of things that we ought to be seen doing. We are not just talking and making loose statements out there. The statements we are making are directed by the immediate actions that we ought to be taking. We are saying by this time, officials should have reported to the National Working Committee so that such matters receive the necessary attention. We then also make sure that our own National Executive Committee is brought on board. We even went further and welcomed actions taken by the President Ramaphosa in his capacity as President of the Republic. One, to sign a proclamation around investigations related to COVID-19 spending. but also making sure that there is a multi-pronged approach that brings together the different law enforcement agencies that begins to deal with all of these things decisively. We haven't done this before. We are doing this now because we understand the moment. It is not the sympathy that the ANC is seeking. The ANC has got the capacity to self-correct. This organization of ours listens to the concerns that are raised by the people. Act so in the interest of the majority.
So what do you expect? A pat on the back for doing what you were supposed to do years ago? You, in your statement, say yourself, at the 54th National Conference, the ANC decided that it will combat corruption. But you haven't done that. So why should we believe you that you're going to do it now?
Well, we are not expecting a pat at the back. We have outlined a number of measures that are being undertaken. The promise and commitment we are making to the people of this country is that where cases are handled by law enforcement agencies, as an interested party ourselves, we will be monitoring the progress to make sure that we give our people the sort of confidence required. But not only that, we've also made a call to our people, to yourselves, everyone out there who might be knowing of instances where members of the African National Congress are involved in wrongdoing, to report such cases to law enforcement agencies. Fighting crime and corruption, it is not going to be a task that the ANC fulfills alone. It is one that the ANC will have to fulfill working together with the rest of South Africa's people.
Yeah, well, clearly not, because many people would argue that the ANC has been protecting its members. You have members being probed in Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, the Eastern Cape, and the Free State. What action are you taking against those accused where there's clear abuse of affiliation here?
Well, I can tell you now that all of those implicated, and we must perhaps welcome the swift actions taken by structures in Gauteng, in the Eastern Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, as well as in the Free State. And also welcome steps taken by our own members, who some have voluntarily stepped aside while matters involving them being implicated on COVID-19 related cases are being expeditiously attended to by the relevant structures.
Yeah, so even if people are found guilty, Pule, you still let some people back into the party. Let's talk about that, right? You have a track record. We're not saying that we don't trust the ANC without good reason. Tony Ngeni comes to mind here. He was convicted of fraud in a couple of years ago, in 2018. You still saw fit to let him head up the ANC's Crime and Corruption Committee. You're asking South Africans to trust you, yet you make really poor decisions.
Well, I don't think so. I think we need to be fair to the party. All of those...
Why? Has the party been fair in its fight against corruption? Why do you expect South Africans to be fair when it comes to this, then?
Well, I understand the concern. We understand the concerns that are being raised by our people out there. Our people need action. They need to see this the ANC taking action with great speed, acting against its own members who are found to be in the wrong. They want to see the ANC-led government ensuring that where there are investigations involving wrongdoing in government, whether by politicians or by public servants, action is taken. I think that is what that is the message that has been coming out of South Africans out there. We can tell you now that we are loyal to our own resolutions as the leadership of the ANC, and are going to do everything else in our power to make sure that the unity and renewal trajectory that we resolved on at the 54th National Conference is going to be led by men and women of great stamina who could be trusted by the rest of South Africa's people.
So easy to say that, right? Because you still need to prove yourself here. I want you to still answer that question regarding those who are clearly indicated to have abused their power and affiliation to the ANC to get tenders illegally or in a dodgy fashion. What are you doing pending the investigations against them?
Well, I can tell you now that, when an investigation is done, also remember that members of the ANC are South Africans who enjoy every right like any other South African. Where people are implicated, in wrongdoing, investigations, or there are allegations of such implications against them, investigations ought to be done. Such individuals ought to be given an opportunity themselves to present their own case. Upon them doing that, appropriate structures of the ANC with the necessary capacity will be able to make a determination, bring forward a report. The ANC, like any other self-respecting formation, has got rules of procedure, and these rules of procedure ought to be undertaken. I mean, we can't, on the basis of an allegation that is not yet tested in the organization, without processes being set up, be seen there acting. If we do that, we will actually be infringing on the rights of others.
What about the infringements of rights?
So for our decisions to be protected, we too must respect the rights of others.
Yes, I get that, but you are infringing on the rights of South Africans by allowing looting in our government by your officials and members, and very little action is taken against them over the past couple of years. We have people going on trials for years, Jacob Zuma, for instance. We have so many allegations against ANC officials that are still under investigation for years. How long do you expect South Africans to put up with this nonsense? It's outrageous.
Well, Shahan, let's hold hands together here with yourself.
No, I don't want to hold your hands about this. You should be ashamed about the corruption in the organization.
With everyone else, including yourselves in the media. If you know of an ANC member who was found with his hand in the till, continuing to occupy a position of responsibility without the organization taking any action, even when the organization is aware, I challenge you to put that forward and also report such to law enforcement agencies.
And I challenge you not to appoint people who are found guilty of fraud and corruption into party positions like you did with Tony Ngeni. And you stood there and you defended it as a party when you put him in that position as part of the ANC's Crime Corruption Committee, heading that after he spent time in jail after being found guilty of fraud and corruption. Yet you still are on the show today in 2020 asking us to hold your hand and trust you in this fight against corruption.
Well, Shahan, I do not want to be sidetracked, but I'm going to encourage you in your own spare time to go and read records around the Tony issue and how it was dealt with. You'll actually realize that the issue, the case was sufficiently dealt with, which now allows Comrade Tony to come back and occupy a position of responsibility in the organization. We should also not forget, having said all of that, that these comrades are freedom fighters in their own name and right. So sometimes... And
that does not condone corrupt activities. Whether you're a freedom fighter or not, that does not condone corrupt activities. I can't believe you actually said that.
Well, I was saying that in the context of encouraging you to go and look at the report on how the ANC shall have resolved on these matters. But you see, Shahan, I wouldn't want to be sidetracked. We are dealing with the issues of COVID-19 and how the ANC is responding to some of these acts of grand corruption, and reassuring the people of South Africa that our response on COVID-19 is really about saving lives, and that we will act against we have encouraged our government to act against any wrongdoing associated with the fight or undermining the fight against COVID-19.
Pule, what I'm saying is, Pule, we need action from the ANC. You're taking this nation for fools with years of promises and no action. When do we see politicians and politically connected individuals in jail?
Well, I can tell you now, we have not had COVID-19 for years. Let's just talk about the pandemic that we began dealing with over the past few months.
Yes, but we've had corruption for years.
So that we are focused in our thing, you see, because, screaming at the ANC on corruption allegations and making generic statements, even when the African National Congress has put forward a program to deal with issues that are really a cancer in our own society, that alone poses a challenge. Here is the ANC. It comes out of its own NEC. It speaks to the measures that it is going to be undertaking to fight the scourge of corruption. It also says that at the front line of dealing with all of this are going to be its own national officials, working together with the relevant structures that have got to do with the discipline of members as well as the integrity of our own members as well.
As a journalist who also is trying to protect the constitutional democracy of this country, I have a duty to hold you to your track record. So I'm not sidetracking, which is what you're saying. I'm telling you, given your history as the ANC, that you haven't dealt with corruption properly in this country. So now when you talk about dealing with corruption during COVID-19, why should we believe you? That's exactly what I'm doing here. There's no sidetracking.
I understand that. I'm not even taking away your right. You are welcomed to probe the work that we are doing without fear or favor. You know, that is what a responsible media must do. All I'm saying is that we have outlined measures of the things that we are going to be undertaking over the next shorter period, which work is going to be led by our own national officials. Now, I know that there would have been challenges as it relates to the speed through which we act on cases of malfeasance. We ought to now be show that we are moving with the necessary speed, because when we don't act with speed, we also undermine the very confidence that we are trying to hold on to.
All right, Pule, I will let you go and do your work. Hopefully you get this right this time. And actually switch on to ENCA, because I have a whole list of corruption allegations that I'm going to be speaking out to our reporters about right here on The Lead. Thanks for your time. Pule Mabe is the ANC national spokesperson.